Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. This is The Aftermath, and The Aftermath is not what we expected it to be. No black box to search for in this one. The plane did not crash. The Patriots win 16-10. Phil Perry will join us in just a second, but I just wanted to monologue for a second here because this is a new era, but it's a win that really felt like old times. Think about this. The Patriots won with ball control offense, a running game, efficiency, toughness, turnovers forced, specialty teams. Hat tip to Joey Sly. And just being the smarter football team. It's the first time the Patriots have won an opener since 2020 with Cam Newton at quarterback, and that was a year when they were playing the rebuilding Miami Dolphins. The Patriots' second drive of the game when they scored a touchdown to go ahead, unexpectedly 7-0, that was a 14-play, 85-yard drive that took 7 minutes and 20 seconds. They had one touchdown drive last season in the entirety of the year that was longer than that ended with a touchdown. That was on October 15th against the Raiders. They lost the game. Yet the Patriots had 3 drives of 12 plays or more on Sunday. Beyond those drives and beyond the performance of Alex Van Pelt, which we will plumb more deeply into with Phil Perry, consider these plays that actually literally saved the Patriots points or put them on the board. Hunter Henry, he stopped the loss of a field goal by punching out a would-be interception in the end zone on a bad Jacoby Brissett throw. That saves you 3 because the Patriots settle for a touchdown. Kyle Duggar punches out a would-be touchdown that is scooped by Marcus Jones and returned. Patriots wind up with a field goal down the other end. That's a 10-point swing. So we're up to 13. Joe Cardona, a strip. That leads to 3 more points. We're now up to 16 total points. How's my math? Yeah, that's right. And then they turned them over on downs when they were conceivably in striking range in the second half. So that's another 3 points. That's 16 points to the plus the Patriots were able to create for themselves by being opportunistic. Meanwhile, they finished the game with 5 penalties for 40 yards. They finished the game taking knees. They tackled like geniuses. They rallied to the football, kept plays in front of them, limited Jamar Chase to 6 catches, 62 yards, 10 yards per catch. Who cares? They had an overpowering running game. I mean, this was so wholly unexpected in terms of the competency of the performance. I didn't think they'd be as bad as they performed at different junctures in the preseason, mainly because they just didn't have all their guys out there at different points. But to play with this level of efficiency really is eye-opening. I don't know if it's full-on validating for everything the Patriots have decided to do post-Bill Belichick, but it certainly shows that they're a hell of a lot more right with the things that they chose to do than we kind of gave them credit for. Gerard Mayo, talk about it.
Very proud. My message to the players, they gave me the Gatorade shower and things like that, but without them, I'm nothing. So, and I made sure they knew that. Like, they crossed the white lines. I always talk about empowering the players to go out there and play. I always talk about awareness really being the number one thing and those guys taking ownership. So, all the praise goes to those guys, and they did a great job. That was my first Gatorade bath, yeah. It was cold.
Gerard Mayo passed on every opportunity to say, I told you so. We're better than you thought. You thought I was a boob. I'm not a boob. So, too, did Jacoby Brissett, who has been fielding questions about being, basically a cardboard cutout, a mannequin, a placeholder for Drake May for 6 weeks or so. He also passed on any opportunity to say, you know what, I'm actually good, or at least not horrible. He also talked, and I found this interesting, about the fact that Patriots, who struggled mightily at junctures during the preseason, felt like they could just overpower Cincinnati. This is him in the postgame.
We said it before the game. It's like it's going to be a certain point in the game where we're just going to overpower them. We're going to just outcondition them and do all the little things right more than them because of all the work that we put in. And I think that was on display. everybody in the stands knew we were running the ball at the end of the game, and we still get first down after first down. We're there in passing situations, and our defense is hunting down the quarterback and taking away their best players and limiting a really good quarterback. Once you do that, that's the identity we want to create, and I think we did that.
This is the kind of win that puts the wind in a team's collective sails. I don't know how the season's going to end. You don't either. But they ain't going over. And that's going to feel pretty good given some of the forecasting. Let's bring in the Senator Phil Perry, who was out there in Cincinnati today, boots on the ground. He was in the locker room, and we ask him now, Senator, what was the mood in that locker room after this game?
Yeah, Tom, an emotional locker room in a good way, obviously, but I think especially as it related to the players' feelings for their head coach. Interesting to me, you get guys like Jabril Peppers who've known Gerard Mayo as an assistant, who's led that defense for the last few years. He wanted to make sure he could do everything he could do to get on the field for this week. I'm sure he would have no matter who was the head coach, but I think it meant a little something extra for somebody like him. We could get into the details of everything Jabril Peppers had to do to get on the field a little bit later if you want to. It's pretty entertaining listening to him after the game. Joe Cardona talking to me after and saying, listen, I'm excited for the win, but any gratitude I feel, any positive emotion I feel for either myself or for us as a team just for this win, it pales in comparison to what I feel for Gerard Mayo and Matthew Slater and Dante Hightower, guys that I played with that are now part of this coaching staff, because he understands how much it means to them and how much work they're putting in, and Mayo in particular, obviously. So a lot of positive emotion in there, and a lot of veteran people who can speak to their emotion and even do a better job of it than I'm doing right now. But I didn't get a sense to your point about, the fact that they were underdogs and having the opportunity to tell people, all the naysayers, how wrong they had it. I didn't get a lot of that. There was a little bit of it. Devon Godchaux said it was disrespectful that they were 8.5 point dogs, but there was not a lot of that. I think just genuine happiness, enjoying the moment after the fact.
Wild. I mean, Devon Godchaux, the team was 4-13 last year, and they could not block a kindergartner for large swaths of the preseason. You're lucky it was 9, not 8.5, 9. Now people might have to reconfigure their expectations, but they earned every bit of that underdog status. We saw the Gatorade bath for Gerard Mayo. And look, Patriots fans have seen a lot of success around here, and they don't see Gatorade baths after season openers. But this kind of does announce a couple of things in doing that. They might eye roll and say, what the hell? Suddenly we're giving Gatorade baths out in Cincinnati, being one of the historically worst teams in NFL history here? Yeah, you are. You know why? Because the expectations are totally different. And even for people who consider, because of working relationships in the past, Gerard Mayo a friend, first someone we cover, but also a friend, we didn't think they were going to be any freaking good. When you get the reward of achieving something that you worked for and everybody says is beyond your grasp, I don't blame them for throwing the big blue Gatorade on the kid.
I don't either. And I think it just tells you that it did mean something to these guys for Mayo. Mayo has, I think, been very consistent in explaining himself as someone who is sort of a, the buzzword you hear a lot of, and I think in the non-sports working world is servant leader. You obviously hear it in sports too these days, but I think he sort of wants to embody that, and he's been very open talking about, hey, yeah, it means a lot to me, but what he generates pride from is the ability to help people do their thing and look their best. And so when they get to go out and win a game that nobody expected them to win, yeah, everybody's happy for him. I think in part because they know he's doing what he can do to help them be at their best.
Phil, I have a question. Micro and macro. Micro, does this win and the way the Patriots accomplished it validate their quarterback and offseason plan?
No, not yet. I just hesitate to put too much into 1 week. If they come out and they can't manage the game the way Jacoby Brissett managed it. And I thought he was tough and gritty and picked up critical third downs. And then when they had the lead, I thought they managed the game well. But 5 yards per attempt, Tom, it's hard to look at the quarterback situation and say, they got it all figured out there.
No.
But they won the game. And so good for them, and that's what they should do. And Tom, honestly, they should try to win every game this year the way they won that game.
And that's what I think. I think it validates it because they showed that they could do it once. If this happened in week 7, after beating, after thrashing, after hammering, and they went out and won a game like this, you'd say, it took you forever to do it. You had no concept of how you were going to accomplish this really efficient game. But they did it in week 1 on the road against a good team, albeit one without all of its weapons, albeit one that was complicit in its own demise. But I think that if you go out and say, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, ideally, and then you do it, I think you have to give them credit.
You give them a ton
you do. You are giving them credit. I'm not saying you're not doing that.
You give them a ton.
But it is irrefutable proof that we did it. We know we can do it. See?
I love that they have established, through 1 week, established a real identity, a real philosophy, a consistent approach. Because it's been probably since 2020 with Cam Newton, as bad and as dysfunctional as the passing offense was for that team, you knew what they were trying to do. You knew they were trying to run the ball, and they were trying to use Cam Newton's skill sets, whatever they were at that point in time, to try to help them squeeze whatever they could squeeze out of that team. There was a consistent, this is who we are, week after week after week. The last 2 years, 3 years, we really, I think even in 2021, maybe because you had a rookie quarterback and you're still trying to find your way, like this team, it's very clear what they want to be. They've said it, and now they've done it. So I give them all the credit in the world, and I think it's another feather in Alex Van Pelt's cap, Tom. I think it's been a good couple of months for him between what we've seen from Drake May on the practice field in some of these preseason games. He's growing, he's developing, and then the plan they had today clearly worked. They were able to execute it even with more movement on an offensive line that we thought was already bad. So kudos to him.
Yeah, it's really interesting as you watch this. Even think about that. In 2021, the Patriots won a game at Buffalo in the wind, in which they barely threw the football because okay, let's be this guy this week. And there was certainly a sense, I think, after that game of Bill's gonna Bill. You never know. Oh, this guy. And to me, it's great, but you're never developing an identity. And you're certainly in a game like that, as brilliant as it was, I think you're saying to Mac Jones, we don't need you, which came to the fore in the next 2 years. I watched that game today, and I said to Michael Hawley and to Brian Hoyer, I just didn't see any useless play calls. There were no calls in which I said, what are they trying to do? What are they trying to accomplish? There was an identity there. I would have liked to have seen the ball to go to Mario Douglas more. I would have liked to see more, jet motion and things like that, more movement. But this was meat and goddamn potatoes, Phil. And that's all they were given.
It was.
We're giving you meatloaf. Sit down and eat it or get the F out.
Very straightforward. No dressing anything up. There wasn't a single reverse. I think they only threw. This is a team that says they want to be the best screen team in the league. Like that. It feels like that might be as exotic as they get. And I think they only threw 1 or 2 screens in this game. So it was a lot of 2 tight ends, a lot of 3 tight ends technically, but you have the additional offensive lineman out there, Caden Wallace.
Yeah, that worked okay too, by the way.
It worked well and right down your throat. Plow straight ahead. This was not, I would say, not anyone's version of a modern offense in 2024, and that's okay. I really think that's okay, given the personnel that they have, the quarterback running the controls, and what they're trying to leverage at this point in time. I'll go through the full game in a minute here once we jump off the pod and I start writing about this one, but I had at halftime, they were over 60% under center. And we know, just looking at the box score, more runs than passes in this game. I mean, how many teams, I get it, you got the lead and you want to try to bleed clock and and run the football, but that's not, generally speaking, in today's game, that's not a winning formula, but they were able to execute it today.
Yeah, and what's going to happen, as we all know, because we watch football, if you're listening to this pod, you understand strategy enough to know that next week when they play the Seattle Seahawks, they're going to load the box and say, well, Ramondre Stevenson's not going to have 120 yards against us. We promise you that. And that means, okay, well, how will Jacoby Brissett do throwing downfield to Hunter Henry, to Austin Hooper, to KJ Osborne, Tyquan Thornton? And then how are they going to involve the Demario Douglases? How are they going to get a screen game going in which they can get it to Antonio Gibson? But that's for another day. For today, why are Caden Wallace, Leighton Robinson, Vidarian Lowe, and the guys whose names we know able to execute? And what happened at the left tackle position with Chukwuma Okorafor and Vidarian Lowe?
So I think part of the reason they were able to execute, and I will give them credit, I think the number one reason why the run game looked as good as it did was named Ramondre Stevenson. I think it's that easy. You know, when he's running through tackles at the line of scrimmage or making defensive backs who have to come up and be the quote-unquote force player at the end of the line, and they're just out there on an island, and he's attacking them because his vision is that good, and he can see that guy, and he says, oh, I can run through him or run around him or juke him. That can make a lot of run games look pretty good. So he looks like a different player already to me this year as compared to last year. But what I heard from offensive linemen in the locker room today was that camp that they had, they felt as though really helped them get ready for week one. It was physical. It was hard. They were in pads a lot. They ran the football a lot. They were trying to get this Alex Van Pelt, Scott Peters system down, and it was rep after rep after rep after rep, and it led to some guys getting banged up, but they feel like it conditioned them to be able to perform the way they did today. Aside from Chukwuma Okorafor.
What happened?
Chukwuma Okorafor, I think he's just had a hard time getting dialed in all summer, all off season, Tom, and it extended it to week one. Obviously, he's had to move back and forth between left and right tackle, and that hasn't been easy, is my understanding for him. But I think they just realized he couldn't do it on the left side today. He got Jacoby Brissett drilled on a third down. He still was able to complete the pass.
What juncture did that happen?
I could give you the exact play. It was early in the game. I think it was less than 20 plays into the game here. But it was, let's look at it. Of course you would spring that on me, and I should.
No. Just tell me, you're like.
No, of course you would. That's just.
No, I mean.
That's what you would do.
Okay, you're out there on the road. If you want to take a half an hour bath, you can do it.
It was the first quarter. I got it. For people on the YouTube, that's how I keep my notes during the game, so I can.
Oh yeah,
success rates and
for people who are not on YouTube, we got Phil is in his hotel room in the Queen City.
Right, and I just flapped my 5-star spiral notebook right in front of the camera there because people are interested in that. Chukwuma Okorafor. It was on that long touchdown drive. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plays in, but on third down, Okorafor got Brissett drilled by Trey Hendrickson, which we knew was going to be a rough matchup. Brissett ended up completing the pass, extending the drive, but Lowe came right in, and he didn't leave after that. So he was frustrated, I know, after getting hurt. Talked to him for a while in the locker room today. Hurt his oblique late in camp. He felt like he was really going to be this team's left tackle. Injury knocks him out, but gets his opportunity today. He said, I didn't know if I was going to play one snap or if I was going to have to play the whole game. And he ends up playing damn near the whole game and doing well enough. I don't want to sit here and say these guys were awesome, Tom, because it did feel like there was a lot of pressure. Mm-hmm. It did feel like Ramondre Stevenson had to do a lot on his own. But, clearly when you run for as many yards as you run for, those guys deserve their due.
It's a little bit jaw-dropping that Chukwuma Okorafor, who was kind of a decorated free agent signing, or at least a higher profile one than Vidarian Lowe when he was plucked and brought in here, gets benched. But I'm not going to dwell on the negative today. This is still, however, an overmatched roster, especially on the offensive side of the ball. What would you like to see a little bit more of and develop from this offensive side of the ball and this team in general? Because as I pointed out, the Patriots, I can find 16 points to the good that they were able to save themselves, from the Kyle Duggar punch out to the Hunter Henry. pull away from the defensive back saving points to the Joe Cardona forced fumble to the turnover on downs. It's a lot of points that they created because of their own headiness. Well, what do they need to do to become more daunting offensively against a team if it turns into okay, you guys got to go 80 yards. How you going to do it? Which they actually did a couple times. I can't believe the length of some of their drives.
I mean, they had a field goal drive at the end of the half that started at their own 18. The touchdown drive started at their own 20. And they were able to punch it in there with Ramondre Stevenson. I would just say, as far as their pass game goes, a little bit of offensive line needing to improve and give Jacoby Brissett time, but there were times when he had time, and then he had to scramble, Tom, because it felt like the receivers weren't getting open. And then there were times where Jacoby Brissett just missed throws. I thought there was even one that got caught by Pop Douglas. It felt like if he had hit him with a better throw, I think the third down play, he might have been able to catch and run for the first down. Douglas had to leave his feet, jump up, grab it over his head, and he ends up kind of working his way backwards before getting upfield for the first down. So it's a little bit of everything. I think the pass game sort of was what we thought it would be. Like, again, 5 yards per attempt. I think they were 15 for 21 for 121 yards, something like that. Like, that's just, you're not going to win a lot of games with that kind of pass game. Listen, let's start with the quarterback. As tough as he was, as gritty as he was, as much as I liked what he did to contribute to the team's overall toughness that they showed today, and I think teams can feed off of that when their quarterback's doing some of the things that he was able to do, scrambling, taking hits, staying in bounds at the end of the half to continue to run clocks so they could kick a field goal and go into the locker room. There was at least one keeper play, so play action boot, where I thought he had at least one receiver open and maybe two, and just missed the throw. So you're going to need more consistency there if you want to do much more in the pass game.
The two biggest misses I thought I saw in the passing game for him was he threw high to KJ Osborne, missing a conversion. There was also a crosser to Demario Douglas. He had thrown it outside to Polk, I believe. Polk made the reception, but Douglas was crossing underneath and definitely would have had some serious catch and run opportunity. So, look, get Demario Douglas involved. Simple. That's my demand. Meanwhile, Demario Douglas was an irrelevant questions
superstar.
Yes, and superstar. And then dancing Joey Sly in week 2 was another one. So I think right now that if you're on irrelevant questions, you're going to be a big contributor. Joey Sly making sure that we didn't miss tiny face Chad Ryland one tiny bit. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to enjoy this portion of the show. It's very simple. It's stock up and stock down. Phil and I are going to give you 3 each. We're going to combine on these. First, let's do the stock up. Let's keep it happy. Phil, your first stock up goes to?
Has to go to Ramondre Stevenson, 120 yards rushing. Guy was an animal, creating all sorts of yards for himself. He said the Patriots were the hammer, not the nail, when it came to their rushing attack today. I wholeheartedly agree. He is, for sure, a stock up.
Sometimes you're the windshield. Sometimes you're the bug. The Bengals were the bugs. I'm going to give a stock up to Keon White, 2.5 sacks, the dominant defensive force the Patriots hoped he would be when they jettisoned Matthew Judon and his contract demands to the Atlanta Falcons in exchange for a 3rd-round pick. Boy, he is a problem. So that's my stock up. We need one more, Phil. You take it away.
I'm going to give Gerard Mayo a stock up today. I felt like he outcoached Zach Taylor between the turnovers, creating turnovers, preventing them on your own end, having an identity offensively, defensively, putting a lid on an explosive, what could be an explosive pass game, only 5.6 yards through the air on average. That's how far Joe Burrow's passes travel beyond the line of scrimmage. That's fantastic stuff. Make him dink and dunk all day long. I'm giving Gerard Mayo a stock up, putting him in the stock up category after he gets his first NFL win.
For every stock up, there's usually a stock down, but not today, folks. Not today. We're not going to give you 3 stock downs. We're going to give you 1 because we really only have 1. And that is going to be Chukwuma Okorafor, the left tackle. He got Jacoby Brissett, as you heard on the pod, hammered on a completion for Brissett. But that resulted in him getting the hook. So left tackle Chukwuma Okorafor is our lone stock down. Unless, Phil, you want to overrule me and give somebody else.
I think we got it. We just have to point out. Two relatively new Patriots defensive backs. Marco Wilson.
You're going to slap Marco Wilson?
He's a stock downer. And Del Pettis. Dirty.
Oh, yeah, Del Pettis deserves one.
With the illegal formation on the opening kickoff of the 2024 season. Come on, Del. What are we doing? Otherwise, special teams were fantastic. Joe Cardona, Brendan Schooler, those guys could have been stock-ups. But Del Pettis, let's put him in the stock-down category.
Yeah, and if we had 4 stock-ups, we would have had Joey Slide, the kicking guy, but we can't do it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's your stock-up and stock-down. Phil, I think it's time to put a cork in it. Let you start doing some writing out there in the Queen City. Folks, you know Covington, Kentucky well. I'm sure you do. It's right next to Cincinnati, Ohio. And so many of you have written in and said, how can I get down to Covington, and where are some of the great places that I can stay or visit? Phil, any place down in Covington, Kentucky you want to tell the people about?
I'm not there. Listen, I had a great time at the airport, but I'm in Cincinnati, man. I'm
Okay, well, that's right next to Covington. How could you resist? Okay, folks, Phil's glitching. Yeah, he's glitching. Yeah, leave it in, Adam. That way, that's what happens when Covington gets slandered. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you'll have the breakdown tomorrow with Phil Perry and Ted Johnson. That'll be at 6 o'clock. Quick slants on Tuesday, and we will again. Phil's hitting. Oh boy, he's been hitting it too. Tuesday we will have quick slants and, of course, another Patriots Talk podcast. Thank you, Adam Jay-Z, who's producing this program. Thank you to the Skull Crusher, John Henry, for being John Henry. And thank you, listeners, for being there for us. We always appreciate your kind comments, and we sometimes read the negative ones. Signing off, it's Tom Curran for The Aftermath.